Continuing the summer report series, today we're taking a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe, and let's take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. So the Toronto Maple Leafs are looking for a long playoff run this season in the 2019-2020 season with distractions away now at this point. They tried fixing up the defense. They re-signed Auston Matthews and now Mitch Marner as well. The problem is now, can they win not only during the regular season, but can they have a good playoff run? Now, it's going to be difficult for the Maple Leafs as they have a lot of money locked up in specifically three players. John Tavares making over $10 million, Mitch Marner making over $10 million, and Auston Matthews making over $10 million. So that's a lot of money wrapped up in three hockey players. Forwards as well, so that's not even talking about defense for this team, and that's one of the complaints out of not only in Toronto but around the rest of the league. How good is Toronto with a new defensive core? So let's take a look at that. So the Toronto Maple Leafs have no money left in salary cap space heading into this season. They actually didn't really have the money when signing Mitch Marner. They're around $13 million over the salary cap right now. That will go down, though, once the season begins. They can put a couple of guys on LTIR, David Clarkson's contract, Nathan Horton's contract, as well as possibly a player that's injured right now who could be starting the season out of the lineup on the IR as well. Maybe Zach Hyman could be one of those guys. So Toronto Maple Leafs can definitely free up a decent amount of cap space in terms of that. They could also make a trade here and there. And something I've also heard is they may only have two players that are scratched in the lineup. Instead of having a third man on the active roster, they may only have room for two with the salary cap. So let's take a look at what could be next season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's a whole lot of defensemen that will be available in next year's free agency class. At this point, you have Cody Ceci, Jake Muzzin, Tyson Barrie, Jordan Schmaltz, and Justin Holl. They'll be lucky to probably get two of those guys back. Depends on the seasons they have as well. I would expect a guy like Justin Holl to come back, and either Ceci, Muzzin, or Barrie. Unless Ceci takes a real discount next summer, making less than $1 million, or maybe a little bit more than that, maybe a little less than two. Toronto may be able to fit him in under that, but they're also good. Remember, they have young, promising defensemen in the system as well. Guys like Calle Rosen, Timothy Liljegren. So they're going to want those guys to play on the roster as well, making some of these guys expendable next summer. All right, so let's take a look at the lineup for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season. First line, you got Zach Hyman, John Tavares, and Mitch Marner. That's not going to end up being the first line to start the season because of Zach Hyman and his injury. It depends how long he is out of the lineup. I would assume that someone else will get the call on that first line, possibly Kapanen going up there, or maybe another young guy. Second line, you got Andreas Johnsson, Auston Matthews, and William Nylander. That's a very good line right there. Matthews and Tavares being your 1-2 punch is a really solid line, as well as Nylander, who can play at center. He's definitely been more molded into the NHL role of being a winger at this point. He had an awful season last year. I would expect a huge season from William Nylander this year. He definitely needs it. Johnsson, he's going to be a good piece to fill in on that team, and he gets a lot of help playing with a very, very good line. The third line, you got Trevor Moore, Alex Kerfoot, and Kasperi Kapanen. Kapanen, I think, is going to end up being in the top 6 to start the year because of the Hyman injury. And he'll be an easy piece to slot right in there. Alex Kerfoot, they recently acquired him over the summer in the Tyson Barrie trade, the Nazem Kadri trade. They locked him up, so he's there for a couple of years. This is a good pickup. He's kind of filling that role that they lost in Tyler Bozak when he left to go to the St. Louis Blues last year. They fill in with a younger guy, and they get some term here with Kerfoot. Trevor Moore is another good asset. He's not a great third line player, but this is what starts happening with the salary cap. Toronto has to give and take a little bit. They have a little bit weaker of depth there with Trevor Moore, but he's still an NHL player. Then the fourth line. This is the most concerning thing about this team besides the defense, or this is the most concerning line on the offensive side of things. You got Nick Petan, Jason Spezza, and Nick Shore. Now the one positive here is all three of those guys can play center, so they're all a little bit interchangeable. I think Spezza is the best out of all of them. Nick Shore would be the second, and I would assume Nick Petan. He really hasn't been playing much center recently, but he can play center. He has played it before. And that's where the depth really starts to bite you if you're Toronto, and losing guys like Marleau and other pieces along the way. This is where the team is definitely hurting the most on the forward group. All right, so looking at the defense, a pretty solid defense for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You got Morgan Rielly and Tyson Barrie on that top pair. That's a very good pair. One of the better pairings in the NHL. Hopefully it lasts for more than one season. We'll have to wait and see how things work out with Barrie, but I really like that group there. You got on the second pair, you got Jake Muzzin and Cody Ceci. Ceci is coming over from Ottawa in a really tough situation. We're going to get to see what Ceci really is at this point. He's still young, but he's definitely starting to get older now, but he still has a chance. He's older, he's a little more experienced. We'll see how he handles the Toronto environment. Jake Muzzin had a couple of ups and downs toward the end of the season with Toronto. He's been in Toronto now for almost 8 or 9 months, so he'll probably be a little bit more comfortable, more acclimated now that he's been there for a little bit longer, and he'll be ready to go in a couple of weeks. Third pairing, you got Travis Dermott and Timothy Liljegren. So Liljegren, I think, is going to be a dark horse. He may end up taking Cody Ceci's spot in the top four. I think more likely than not, by the end of the season, he will have taken that spot. And Travis Dermott, I think he's a good defenseman. He's a younger defenseman. And who knows, he could end up being in the top four as well, depending on how Muzzin and Ceci play. But it seems like they're giving the veterans the benefit of the doubt to start the year. And then goaltending, you have Freddie Anderson and Michael Hutchinson. Michael Hutchinson did not end the season too well with Toronto. He had a couple of good games here and there, but he struggled to stay consistent as the backup netminder. Their Toronto Maple Leafs rid themselves of Garrett Sparks. Now they got to look for someone else to blame if things don't go well this year. But let me know what you guys think of the Toronto Maple Leafs this year in the comment section down below. And my predictions, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs making the top two in that Atlantic Division. It's going to be, the higher end teams are definitely better. I would say there's not too much of a difference at this point between Tampa, Toronto, and, even Florida could be in that conversation. You still have, fringe teams. I would say at this point, Boston's a little bit concerning based on the defensive issues they could have to start the season, as well as the Florida Panthers or the Montreal Canadiens, who are looking to get back on the rise after a pretty tough season last year, but they've got some really good young prospects. I would assume that they will be in the chase. Buffalo could be in there as well. I'm a little bit hesitant with Buffalo. We know the story with Ottawa, so they're probably going to be at the barrel of that division. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe as well. Check out the rest of this playlist as we finish up the Summer Report series, the preseason starting. So, got to get this done, and hoping to get that done in the next week. So, thank you for watching, and have a good day.